My knuckles turned white around the kitchen knife as her words hung in the air between us. "If you stay, I'll destroy this marriage," Valerie hissed, stepping closer until I could smell her too sweet perfume. Her perfectly manicured finger jabbed toward my chest. "You think my son would choose you over his own mother? Please." The tomato I'd been slicing split open beneath my blade, red juice pooling across the cutting board like blood. For 6 months, I'd endured her daily intrusions, her criticisms of everything from my cooking to my career, her constant undermining. But threatening to deliberately sabotage my marriage? That crossed a line I couldn't ignore. I set the knife down with deliberate calm and looked directly into her eyes. "Fine," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "Have it your way." Valerie's face transformed instantly, triumph replacing hostility. She thought she'd won. She had no idea what was coming. "My name is Olivia. I'm 31, and I'm a project coordinator at a mid-sized architectural firm in Seattle. This is the story of how I rebuilt my marriage by burning it to the ground first. I'd always prided myself on handling pressure, tight deadlines, demanding clients, last-minute changes, but nothing prepared me for the emotional demolition that came with marrying into Valerie's family. 8 months ago, I married Nathan. He worked in IT when I first joined the firm, the quiet guy who fixed your computer without making you feel incompetent. We weren't particularly close until we were assigned to the same digital renovation project. Conversations about work evolved into discussions about music, then life. He was steady, funny in an understated way, and thoughtful. After the project wrapped, we continued getting coffee. By spring, we were dating. By fall, engaged. Nathan proposed with a simple silver ring and a handwritten letter that ended with, "Life with you just makes more sense." No drama, no red flags. For once, love seemed straightforward. The first few weeks of marriage were exactly what I'd hoped for. We moved into a cozy 2-bedroom rental on a tree-lined street. I bought new cookware. He assembled bookshelves. We divided chores without conflict. Then came the third resident in our marriage, his mother, Valerie. It started innocently. A casserole delivery, lemon muffins on Sunday morning. "Thought I'd drop something off," she'd say, and I'd smile politely, even when her visits stretched too long. Within 2 weeks, she was arriving daily. Not an exaggeration. Every weekday at precisely 5:10 p.m., the doorbell would ring. I'd be home after work, halfway through dinner prep, and there she'd be, makeup perfect, eyes scanning the kitchen like a health inspector. "Risotto again," she scoffed one Tuesday. "You really think Nathan should eat this mush?" I blinked. "It's his favorite." "Sweetheart, favorite doesn't mean healthy. A real wife makes a protein, a carb, and 2 vegetables. Back in my day, dinner meant effort." I forced a smile. "I'm grilling salmon later this week." "And what is this?" She rummaged through my grocery bag, pulling out a bottle. "Off-brand olive oil?" "Oh no, you should use organic. The toxins in this stuff." I snatched the bottle from her hand. "I'm trying to stick to a budget." Valerie gave me a slow, pitying look. Budgeting is what women do when they're planning for a family. Her eyes flicked to my stomach. "Unless that's not your plan." That was only day 4 of her campaign. By day 8, she no longer knocked. She'd let herself in with the emergency spare key and make herself at home. "I got here early," she said once, feet propped on our couch as she flipped through my design magazines. "Figured you wouldn't mind." I minded. But worse than the intrusions were the comments. Small, sharp jabs disguised as concern. "You're still working full-time. No wonder you haven't gotten pregnant." Some women just weren't raised to be homemakers, I guess. Not your fault, really. If you can't handle stress, maybe Nathan should have married someone simpler. Each word chipped away at my sanity. I told Nathan multiple times. "She's just adjusting," he said. "To what?" I asked. "We're not living with her." "She's invading our space." "I'll talk to her," he promised. But he didn't. Or if he did, it changed nothing. She kept coming, kept criticizing, kept corroding our marriage from the inside out. Eventually, I started avoiding home. I'd stay late at work, even with nothing to do. I'd sit at a coffee shop across from our building, sipping overpriced lattes just to kill time. It was costing me emotionally and financially. When my supervisor noticed I was lingering unnecessarily, he pulled me aside. "You know we don't pay overtime, right?" he said gently. I nodded. I just like the quiet here. He gave me a look that said, "I know there's more, but I won't pry." Something had to change. One Friday, I decided to go home on time. Enough hiding, enough avoiding. I needed to confront Valerie head on. When I walked up the path to our front door, there she was, standing smugly on our porch like she owned the place. "Oh, look, it's the prodigal wife," she said. "Gave up playing hide and seek, did you?" I said nothing, just unlocked the door. She followed me in, immediately inspecting my grocery bags. "More risotto ingredients?" she mocked. "Do you even know what nutrients are?" I turned to her slowly. "Valerie, please stop." "Stop what?" "Coming here uninvited, insulting me, telling me how to run my marriage. You're not helping." Her face hardened. "You think I'm the problem?" I took a deep breath. "You come into our home without permission. You criticize my cooking, my job, my body. You treat me like I'm some placeholder until a better wife comes along." She narrowed her eyes. "Nathan is my son. I raised him to expect excellence. You're a career girl with no maternal instinct. Of course you can't get pregnant. You're too busy running spreadsheets." I stiffened. "I haven't gotten pregnant because I'm too stressed. And most of that stress is coming from you." That hit her. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she leaned forward and hissed the words that would change everything. "If you stay, I'll destroy this marriage. You think my son would choose you over his own mother? Please." Something snapped inside me, not toward anger, but toward clarity. I smiled calmly. "Fine," I said. "You want me gone? You'll get your wish." I grabbed my coat, walked past her, and got into my car, not to leave, but to strike back. I drove straight to the city office. I didn't file for divorce, but I requested the paperwork. Then I texted Nathan. "We need to talk. It's about your mother. Meet me in 30 at the cafe on Pine." That night would change everything. And for once, I wasn't afraid. I was ready. Nathan arrived at the cafe 5 minutes late, looking like he'd run the whole way. Cheeks flushed, hair windblown, eyes scanning the room until they found me. I sat at a table in the back, hands folded, phone face down on the table. He slid into the booth across from me. "What happened? Are you okay? Is it my mom again?" I tilted my head. "Let's not waste time." His face tensed. "That bad?" Instead of answering, I unlocked my phone and tapped the screen. Valerie's voice filled the small space between us. "If you stay, I'll destroy this marriage. You think my son would choose you over his own mother? And if you don't leave, I'll ruin your career too. You think I'll let you ruin my son's life? You're a mistake he married. If you won't quit your job, I'll make sure your boss thinks you want to. Divorce him, or I'll make your life a nightmare." Nathan froze. His lips parted slightly, but he said nothing. When I looked up, I saw something flicker in his expression. Disbelief, yes, but underneath it, shame. He reached for the phone. I pulled it back. "I've been recording her for the past week," I said evenly, "because I knew you wouldn't believe me unless you heard it yourself. I started keeping my phone recording in my pocket whenever she showed up after that first threat." He shook his head. "I never thought she'd go that far. I knew she was pushy, but..." "She's not pushy, Nathan. She's abusive. She's manipulative. And she's actively trying to sabotage our marriage and my career." He rubbed his forehead. "I should have listened." "Yes," I said, "but now you've heard it. So the question is, what are you going to do about it?" Silence stretched between us like piano wire. Then, "What do you want me to do?" I took a breath. "If you want to save this marriage, we need to burn it down first." His eyes snapped to mine. "What does that mean?" "It means we divorce, officially. Then we start over, on our terms. No Valerie, no control, no pretending this didn't happen." He was quiet for a long time. Then finally, "Let's do it." "You?" We drove to the city clerk's office together. We filled out the forms, handed over our IDs, signed the papers. No fight, no yelling, just paperwork. I thought I might cry when I wrote my name under petitioner, but I didn't. I felt calm, almost focused. 25 minutes later, we stood at the same counter. "We'd like to file a marriage application," I said. The clerk blinked. "You just filed for divorce." "Yes," I said. "We're remarrying." She looked at us like we were either brilliant or unhinged, but nodded. "You're legally allowed to do that immediately since the divorce isn't finalized yet." We filled out the forms again. When we got to the name section, Nathan paused. He looked at me. "Do you want to stay Reed?" I hesitated, then shook my head. "No, that name never felt like mine. I want to be me again." He smiled slowly. "Then I want to be part of that family." And just like that, Nathan changed his last name to mine. We left the building not just as a couple, but as a new unit, a fresh contract, a symbolic reset. Not Charlotte and Nathan her way, but ours. We planned our next move carefully. We didn't call Valerie, we didn't warn her. Instead, we called ahead to his parents' house and said we were coming by Sunday afternoon. We knew from Nathan's regular Sunday check-in calls that they would both be home after church. She sounded thrilled on the phone, overly thrilled. She thought she'd won. When we arrived, Valerie opened the door in full pearls and pink mode. Her lipstick was fresh, her perfume cloud thick, her smile theatrical. "Well, well, well," she sang. "Looks like someone's come to her senses." I gave her nothing. Inside, the living room was spotless. A plate of cookies sat untouched on the coffee table. There, in his usual recliner, sat Nathan's father, Robert, flipping through the Sunday paper as if he hadn't noticed the brewing storm. Valerie turned to us as we stepped inside. "Now," she said sweetly, "let's be civil. Every marriage has rough patches. I'm just glad you two came to talk." Nathan's jaw clenched. I touched his hand lightly. It was time. He took a step forward. "We did talk," he said, "and we made a decision." Valerie tilted her head like a curious cat. "Oh?" Nathan glanced at me, then back at her. "We filed for divorce." Her smile twitched but didn't fade. "Well, I'm not surprised. You know, I've always thought—" "And then," he said firmly, "we remarried." "To each other," I added. That landed. Her eyes flinched before her mouth caught up. "I'm sorry, what?" "I took her last name," Nathan added, "legally." Her face dropped fully now. You changed your name to hers?" "Yes, as a fresh start. One without your influence." "You ungrateful little—" Her voice cracked, but she masked it with a laugh. "Nathan, don't be ridiculous." I stepped forward. "This isn't about names. It's about boundaries, and yours no longer exist in our lives." "You think you can come into my family," she snapped, "and tell me how to behave?" "In my house?" "I think I can hold you accountable for harassment," I said, "because that's what this is." "Oh, please," she scoffed. "What are you going to do? Sue me?" I didn't answer. I just pulled out my phone. I tapped one of the audio files and let it play. "If you stay, I'll destroy this marriage. You think my son would choose you over his own mother, and if you don't leave, I'll ruin your career too." Valerie's eyes darted to the speaker. For a second, she looked ready to lunge for it, but before she could speak, someone else did. Robert stood up. He moved with a kind of deliberate calm, folding his newspaper in half and placing it neatly on the coffee table. The room felt like it shifted, not just in silence, but in weight. Valerie turned to him slowly, her expression finally cracking. "Robert," she said lightly, too lightly, "you're not seriously listening to this nonsense." "I heard your voice, Valerie," he said, cutting her off. "You mean we all did?" She blinked. "It's edited, twisted. You know how phones distort things." Nathan stepped forward. "Don't lie, Mom. I've been hearing you say these things my entire life. The only difference now is that someone finally recorded you." Valerie's smile thinned into a grimace. "You're really going to take her side over your own mother?" Robert looked at her long and hard, then turned to me. "Olivia," he said, "I want to apologize." I froze. "No one should have had to deal with that," he continued, "especially not someone who came into this family in good faith. You didn't deserve it. I've suspected this behavior for years, but never had proof until now." I nodded, a lump in my throat. "Thank you." Valerie scoffed. What is this? A courtroom now? Am I on trial? No, said Robert, but if you ever show up at their house again, I'm filing for divorce. The room dropped into dead silence. Valerie's mouth opened, but no sound came out. You don't mean that, she finally choked. I do, he said simply. You've spent years bullying everyone around you, including me. I let it slide for too long. I won't let it slide anymore. You can't survive without me. Robert chuckled softly. That's what you always said. But I think we both know I've been surviving in spite of you, not because of you. Valerie looked between us, her husband, her son, and me, and for once in her life she had nothing to say. Her face collapsed into a kind of stunned vacancy, like she no longer knew which version of reality she was living in. We didn't stay to console her. Nathan and I turned and walked out, not in anger, not in victory, but in finality. The next morning, we started looking for a new apartment. The one we chose wasn't fancy, smaller kitchen, older windows, but it had clean light, thick walls, and a front door that only we had keys to. We painted the walls ourselves. Nathan insisted on a deep navy for the bedroom, so it always feels like night. I chose pale sage for the living room, soft and calming. We didn't invite Valerie. We didn't give her the address. She tried to email twice. Both messages, half apology, half blame. I didn't reply. She didn't try again. Robert, however, called. He asked to come by, just him. He brought homemade lasagna, awkward and quiet at first, but slowly warming. He said he was grateful for the chance to be part of our lives, without the noise. He didn't mention Valerie, and we didn't ask. When we finally did, he simply said, I'm living in the guest house for now, but I've filed the papers. We agreed wordlessly to let some things stay buried. 3 months after the confrontation with Valerie, something changed. I was in the middle of a meeting at work when I realized I hadn't had coffee in days. I usually lived on caffeine, but lately, it made me queasy. I chalked it up to stress or bad milk. But then I started crying at a dog food commercial. I picked up a pregnancy test on the way home, not expecting anything. I took it before dinner, almost absent-mindedly. 2 lines. I sat on the edge of the tub in stunned silence, the test still in my hand. Nathan knocked on the door, asking if I was okay. When I opened it, he saw the test in my hand and froze. You're... I nodded, tears welling in my eyes. He didn't speak. He just wrapped his arms around me and held on like I was made of glass and gold at the same time. The pregnancy went smoothly. No complications, no chaos. I worked until my 3rd trimester, then transitioned to remote consulting. Nathan rearranged his schedule so he could attend appointments with me. Robert came with us twice, just sat in the waiting room reading a magazine, then brought us sandwiches afterward. My boss at the firm had been understanding throughout, especially after I'd explained the situation with Valerie's threats. He assured me my position would be waiting whenever I was ready to return. When our daughter was born, we named her Zoe. It was my grandmother's name. Soft, strong, simple. Valerie found out through Robert. She sent a gift basket with no card. I gave it away unopened. She showed up once at the hospital unannounced. We had told the nurses not to let her in, and they didn't. She waited in the parking lot for over an hour. Robert finally went outside and spoke to her. She left. That was the last time she tried. Robert later told us that he had made it clear that any contact with us would only happen with our explicit permission. After 3 days in the hospital, we brought Zoe home to our apartment. Her first year was quiet. No surprise visits, no late-night arguments, just the gentle rhythm of new parenthood. Feedings, midnight cries, sleepy smiles, soft socks on tiny feet. Robert came by often. He always brought something. Pre-sliced bananas, small picture books, or just stories. Sometimes he stayed for dinner, sometimes only for a hug, but he always asked first. One evening after Zoe had gone to sleep, Nathan handed me a wrapped package. "What's this?" "Something I've been working on," he said. Inside was a photo album, leather-bound, filled with printed photos. Us painting the apartment, standing outside the courthouse with our 2nd marriage license, the first sonogram, Zoe's tiny hand gripping Nathan's finger. On the inside cover, he had written, "Our family, not inherited, built." I ran my fingers over the words. "Thank you," I whispered. Nathan looked at me, his expression soft. For what? For choosing me, I said. Finally. Fully. He didn't answer. He just kissed me like he meant it, like the past was behind us, the future was ours, and nothing would ever come between us again. And so it stayed. We kept our names. We kept our keys. We kept our boundaries. Valerie never stepped across the line again because this time, the door wasn't just closed. It was locked. And we had the only copy. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles. Zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.